The Dearborn Independent, July 9th, 1927, Volume 27, Number 38. Having Their Own Way in Mexico by William L. Stidger. The people of Mexico get their way. They're like children in their methods of getting it, but they get it. They get action from their government more quickly than it can be had from any government that I know of on the face of the earth. When a child wants the moon, he cries for it. Sometimes the common people of Mexico yell and cry and fight for the moon, but usually they know what they want and they make themselves felt by voice, protest, and strike until they get it. For example, let us start with the average motion picture audience in Mexico. If there is a break in the film or any delay, boys and girls, men and women immediately begin to yell, pound, kick, and whistle with insistence. They want what they want, when they want it, and they usually get it. Their practice of democracy is pragmatic. It works. It gets results in direct action. When a crowd in a theater does not like a certain piece of music that the orchestra or the organist is playing, it immediately makes its dislike felt by yelling for the orchestra to stop, and the orchestra stops. It has learned that it is the best to respond to the will of the people. Several theaters have been wrecked because some foolish orchestra leaders had autocracy imposed his own musical wisdom as better than that of the audience. One day, as a friend of mine was walking along one of the principal streets of Mexico City in broad daylight, he heard the sound of shooting. He ran to the scene and saw an inspector of police trying to arrest a half-drunken Mexican. The Mexican resisted. He refused to go with his inspector. He refused to be arrested by this particular man. He had his choice of policemen. He said to the inspector, "I won't let you arrest me, but I'll let the traffic officer arrest me." The inspector, thinking to intimidate the man, took him by the throat and rammed his head against the wall. Just as my friend came by, he was emptying his automatic into the wall on each side of the culprit's head, coming within an inch of him at each shot. But this did not scare the Mexican. He still refused to go with the inspector. As the inspector was all dressed up in the official togs, this fracas was making a merry fool of him. So he finally had to give in and allow the officer on the corner to take the man to jail while he watched traffic, much to his disgust and chagrin. "That's really democracy," I said to my friend, "when it gets to the point where a fellow has a choice of who arrests him, and where he can make that choice felt and can get his desire. The people are not slow to make their will felt and their power when they feel that the government, city, state, or nation is not doing the square thing. They're a patient lot and let many things slide through sheer laziness and indifference. For instance, there is no real voting as yet in Mexico, for the people are not sufficiently educated, nor do they care to vote. Most of the voting is done by the heads of the cities and states, the returns being signed by one man and sent in. But even that is a step in the right direction. When it comes, however, to practical everyday matters that are close to the people, they get their way, and they get it quickly and effectively. They stand for no delay nor trifling, and laws and rules have been known to be changed overnight because of a good, solid strike protest, with a few officials shot in the bargain. Our famous instance occurred when a city water system went wrong because of what the people thought was the carelessness of some waterworks officials. The people, especially the very poor, suffered grievously for a week. The idea got abroad that sufficient spend was not being shown in getting the system to work again. So came the famous water riot. The people assembled on the downtown streets one night and shot a few officials after extending their printed protest and demanding that the water be turned on at once. The nation has a law that a laborer may get 3 months' pay for absence due to any occupational sickness. The Mexicans interpreting this to mean any kind of sickness. A certain American manufacturing concern had 500 laborers fail to show up one Monday morning because of sickness. The Mexicans have another way of making their wishes felt. Stores and shops go on strike. This means of self-expression is used in the Orient also. One of the strongest protests that the Korean have offered against Japanese imposition and cruelty have been the closing of stores and shops until their terms are granted.